Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, welcome to Andy Decodes the 12th Dimension. Today we are joined again by Barry Littleton. Just want to say hello to everyone listening on YouTube and everyone that's listening and downloading on podcast. So thank you all for that. So last time Barry was on, he was on with Jessica Jones, and towards the end of the show, he started telling us about his abduction cases. So I asked Barry to come back on so we could go deeper into that and find out what went on. So welcome to the show, Barry.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate you having me. I appreciate it. I'm honored.
Anytime. More than welcome.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Cool. Right. So
and appreciate all the audience too. Glanced over, saw a lot of chats. Appreciate everybody. Thank you. So
So anyone any questions? If you can do an emoji in capitals or I won't see it. And do you want to just start at the beginning where it all started for yourself?
Just contact, you mean like as far as contact wise, or?
Yeah, well, how it all began with the contact and abduction.
Well, I think I'm, probably a person like so many of your audience. I was born pretty much awake, having started growing up, having past life memories, things like that, but especially having contact experiences between 5 and 7. And during 7, they really, really ramped up, and they started crossing over into, what I thought was my normal everyday life. And then by the time I talk about what were childhood experiences and then adult onset experiences. So I had a lot of experiences when I was a kid till I was about, around 12 and a half. And then they seemed to kind of break off for a little while until I was about 17. And then they ramped up again. And at that point, on the adult onset experiences, I had ones, there were 3 of them where somebody else was present. And when they see these ships come up and all of a sudden they're standing there with you missing, 4 or 5 hours of missing time, and you can still see the beings in your mind's eye. You can see the technology, you've just been somewhere, but the further you get away from the event horizon, the more it becomes, as my brother would say, it kind of it starts fading a little bit. So when I tell what happened to me, it sounds cool and chronological now, but in reality, when it happened, it wasn't like that. It was scattered, it was missing time, and just a whole other thing going on. And that's kind of what happens when you're dealing with beings that are of a faster frequency or faster vibration than we are. When you encounter them, sometimes it can almost become dreamlike when you're in their presence of their biofield and things like that. And, it's hard to remember dreams in that way. But my experiences were physical, but they very much do entwine with each other. And I think that's something that needs to be expressed more, because contact really happens on the conscious level for the most part, not for everyone. There's some that have horrible abductions, but consciousness is how a lot of this happens. Anyway, back to what you asked.
Yes.
The childhood experiences involved, and I hear a lot of this, people like waking up in what they call the mystery school when I was a kid, with a table there and things you can do on the table, like move a feather first, you move the feather, then you move this water. I try to stir it with your mind. And then there are these balls. You can levitate these balls, they look like steelies. And it's these 3 steps you do to get your psychokinetic and telekinetic abilities going. But I found that aggravating because, when I was in my day school, normal school, I couldn't do any of that stuff. I was trying to get the pencil to roll, and it didn't work, so I started getting frustrated with whatever this was going on at night, this mystery school, to a point where I remember one night actually being in a different room and there being other kids in there. And the instructor, I could never see. You can hear them, telepathically, but you can't see them. They're not, still seem to be in there. And I was supposed to, they wanted me to do the stuff on the table for the other kids. I was like, no, because it doesn't work at my other school. There's no point. And I never went back to the mystery school. Anyway, I guess I got maybe uninvited. I don't know. Yeah. But then other things started happening too, especially when I got 7, I started having an individual showed up a few times and played with me. And I thought he was a kid, and I think it says something what these beings can do to us through the optic nerves and consciously, how they can project almost a dream type of virtual reality at us consciously, but in reality, this was an insectoid being. And I saw him again when I was in the 6th grade, and I've talked about it a lot. It's called the acid rain experience is what I've called it.
Yes.
But it's when, things crossed over from what was this nightlife I was having that seemed very real because it was physical. And during the day, you'd be burned out because you feel like you've not slept, but it crossed over in a way that in my daily life, there was no doubt that this was real and this was happening. So that would be the childhood experiences. Then when they ramped back up, they became even more physical, I would say.
Right.
And as opposed to everything that happened physical. And there were 4 experiences that all equaled about 4.5 or more missing hours, missing time each time, these 4. And 3 of them, somebody else was with me. And fortunately, all I will say is that type of delusion is not shared. Because I knew it was happening, it was real, but in reality, it's so far out of anything you have a frame of reference for that it made me get into psychology. You know what I mean? Wanted to learn, make sure I didn't have something like adenine and quinine or something was wrong in my brain. I was having some type of delusions. You know what I mean? Didn't think so, but then again, if I was crazy, I'd be the last person to know, probably.
Oh yeah, it's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah. But those experiences, the missing time, and I went a long time, Andy, acting like I was Mr. Conscious Experiencer because I wasn't because this was physical, and even after the fact, it may fade, but I could still remember the being somewhat, the technology, you know what I mean? But for what I could remember and what I see and what happened, I experienced was a fraction of the time I was missing. I mean, a very small fraction. And I just wouldn't come off that I'm Mr. Conscious Experience thing because I see these other people getting knocked out and worrying about all these other things and missing time. But it was different. My experiences weren't negative. They weren't abductions, but by the same token, I couldn't control them either. They were doing it when they want to do it, Yeah. So anyway, but that goes into that, put me on a quest, lifelong quest of trying to understand the stuff. And I like science. I know a lot of people rag on me for that, but it gives at least a foundation for the stuff we're experiencing. It's so weird and so strange. Everything we're dealing with, this whole paranormal cryptid thing, it's so wacky. It's so weird being a contactee. You don't even have to make anything up. You know,
Oh, well. It's just there, isn't it?
Yeah. Ray Hernandez always said that to me. We don't even have to lie about nothing. It's so weird and ridiculous. I said, yeah, tell me about it. But so in that way, I really want to emphasize how much information and really the modality of contact, how we have to expand it beyond just the grays and beyond the reptilians and beyond, oh, I gotta say it, the tall whites. You know, I mean, we got to go a little beyond that into we're dealing with. Hubble even shows us trillions of galaxies in just this universe alone.
Yeah.
And in my case, I had to accept that I'm dealing with not just beings from other galaxies, billion light years out, millions of light years out. They're from other universes, some of them.
Right.
And this is an alliance that's working together. I had to accept that, especially when I started dealing with a couple of astrophysicists, main one being Rudy Shields. He was telling you, so you keep saying extragalactic, but it's not holding up mathematically, Barry. You're talking about another universe. They didn't call it that, but that's what it is.
Right.
So things like that. And I'm not alone. And I think that I represent a large population of the contact population that has had positive experiences, and they weren't abductions. Now, I'm not at all discounting the people that are having bad abductions, bad experiences, that SSP thing. I think that's very real. I've had some clients I've worked with too that, you have these organizations after their family going back generations, and there are people not even into this stuff. You know what I mean? But it comes out during regressions and stuff. So I am no means putting down anybody that's had negative encounters or saying that doesn't happen, but I'm just not one of the ones. And I think and actually when Ray Hernandez that does CCRA, former Foundation for Edgar Casey Foundation for Extraterrestrial Encounters. Right. He has, they put that out for thousands of people, this 5-stage survey, and they were intense. I took like 2 of them, and I was like, oh. So if you're lying, you certainly ain't gonna want to take that, But when actually the results, Andy, they weren't at all. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're not at all what we would expect. As far as positive versus negative experiences, they were skewed. The scale was skewed massively towards positive encounters. And it's not what the media tells us. And, something that I had to deal with, I talked with him about, was that one of the questions on the first stage of the survey was about the reptilians. And that's one of the ones I had to pass, all right? I've had a bunch of encounters, but none of them been with reptilians. And keeping it 100 with you, my friend, the fact that I've been on board a craft and not had a 9-foot-tall bipedal crocodile walking up on me, I'm cool with that.
I think I would be.
Even that, the scale on that one, the pi scale, it was still massively positive, and the most of it was unknown, and the negative was a very small part of the pie chart. And man, that is not what you expect to hear with all the stuff we hear about the reptilians.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
But anyway, so it's just, real quick, the unknown part, I asked him, I said, what's up with that? It's the biggest part of the graph. He said, well, they have to fill something out with that. And most people said they didn't do anything to me, but just the sight of them was so frightening that it almost drove me over the edge. So that time of not knowing what they're going to do based on looking at them. Anyway, you're going to say something, man. I apologize.
No, I was just going to ask you, why do you think, though, that some people have positive and some have negative encounters? Do you think it's down to the person or the being that is, forgot the word, that's taking them, that's meeting up with them?
Man, that's a great question. You trying to get onions thrown at me? Your audience gonna start throwing carrots at me, man. Like it's the Apollo. I'll tell you what. I think that there's a few factors in here.
Yeah.
One is that there's some type of a electrical scalar frequency added with electricity that exists in this solar system that when we come into this solar system, I think it electrifies our soul to a degree and erases us of soul memories, soul life memories. And one of the many reasons I think so many of us incarnate here as immortal souls devoid of soul life memories.
Right.
Okay. Number two is going to be that this field of energy, it permeates this planet right now. And then when we get down here and we get entrenched with negative encounters, that's all we hear in the media. Grays, anal probes, all this stuff, man, you know, which does happen, but it's like just inundated with us. Then crossing this over, okay, stay with me because I know it's going to sound weird, but when dealing with what people call the Akashic records, the records of space and time, what are they really? I've said this a few times now. They're actually called MACOs, magnetic eternally collapsing objects, aka black holes. Okay. And what they really do, they don't just suck everything in the way we were told when I was a kid, that movie. It just crushes everything, sucks it in. In reality, what goes inside the MACO, becomes part of this. The MACO itself and the black hole is around the inside, if you can see what I'm doing here. And that's actually the mechanism that stores the information in the black hole. Right. So the black holes are actually the hard drives of the universe. And everything that goes in, it creates this thing called a quantum hologram. And that becomes part of this MACO. Okay, so what you have is the universe being recorded on the inside of the MACO is going to be where the universe is now, all the way to the outside. And think of the accretion disk. It would be similar to that. To the outside would be where we are now. But in reality, these operate the same as brain waves, these MACOs. Okay, and they operate in what the physicists are now calling conscious waves, which occur both helical and spherical. And our brains, microtubule, have these things called microtubules. And from my primitive knowledge and what we're talking about, we'll refine that to the brain and the neuron system and brain microtubules, okay, which actually are spherical. So that's how we access the information from the MACOs, is mentally like that. You know, we hear a lot of people saying, what are the Akashic records? What are they? I just described it. They're these MACOs. All right. And, you know, like when dealing with somebody like Rudy Shields, I ask him, well, what do you think the speed of thought is? And he described some type of hydrogen experiment or something. And it was, they said around 100, they thought of 100,000 times the speed of light.
Wow.
So when we have, my whole reason for going into this, forgive me, I know I'm going way off, prior to getting the apples thrown at me now. But when you have civilizations, like they talk about, like Michikako and them talk about stage level 5, level 6 civilizations that actually use the fabric of space for their prime power source, or AKA these MACOs, they probably don't exist anymore actually in the physical universe, but they still exist in that MACO. In the crescent. So that way, when we have an experience, a conscious experience with another civilization, other beings, it's happening consciously and on the brainwave level through the divine field. But we are creators. We have the free will, and we're entrained with this negative thought of these negative experiences. The brain's actually entrained, and that actually warps the experience from these beings that might be higher beings trying to deal with you. You've warped into something it might not be. We are that strong. We know whenever it says we're created in the creator's image, what does that mean? It means as immortal souls, the creative principle passes through us, so we can create, you know, and in that way we can warp and change it. Now, Andy, I'm not saying this explains all negative encounters, okay? No. But it is a portion of them. And this field that people come through is a big deal. And, you know, and just to prove that I wasn't nuts, because it's these beings that have told me about this when I was a kid, it started.
Yeah.
And you know, I had our friend Jessica Jones remote view, actually the bases outside that they told me were outside of Pluto, which are called trans-Neptunian objects. I had a remote view that those bases, not just that she see those are real, but she picked up on the field, the scalar field. And it's something about, you know, if you add electricity with that and you deal with Wilhelm's experiments, when you really look into it, he found that electricity has a negative effect on orgone energy, life energy.
Yeah.
So that means that it's not negative, it's combustible. So
Right.
I think the prime way, if you shock our orgone field, it's a good way to make an immortal soul temporarily lose immortal soul life memories. Food for thought. But I think that's got a lot to do with what's going on with this negativity and how they're swaying things. Because right now we're all starting to communicate, and they've got to stop all the positive from coming through. The main way to do that is by negative abductions and just saturating the media and the entire community with that, which does happen. So it's not hard.
Right. No, thank you for that.
Sorry, it's a long explanation.
Yeah, it's right. I'm just trying to get my head around it all, but I'll get there eventually. About 10 years. No, it's all good. Right. I've got another question for you.
Sure.
I've got a couple. So this one's from Jojo, the moderator. She would like to know: can Barry remember any of his previous lives?
Yeah, a few of them. A few of them. Yeah. I've been here a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what was kind of chiming in on that a little bit? What was made it worse is when I was a kid, I kept waiting for like history class or school to get to the stuff I could remember, and it never did. They're talking about Columbus and all this other stuff I didn't give a damn about, man. But not anything like regarding like what I remember like before the earthquake that broke this planet up, kind of the continents, or the beings that were here before. And we hear so much about Egypt, which is cool and everything there. But, you know, there was a cycle before that here on this planet where you had, you know, melanated beings that were 25 feet tall walking around.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not discussed very much now at all, hardly.
Well, no.
You know, but but in that way, I can remember that. I can remember my last lifetime. You know, my last lifetime, I was an actor. I haven't been able to quite find who I am media-wise in the media. I think it might have been before that, but I was an actor, really good one. And, you know, that still follows me this lifetime. When I watch a movie, man, I can immediately remember every line from every actor in it. And as a child, it was like a nightmare because I watched a movie one time, and when HBO and Cinemax first started Showtime, they were showing the same crap every couple of days, man. It was nothing to be seen again. It was like a blowout the first day. You know what I mean?
Cool.
That was a cool question. JoJo has followed me for a while, I think. Thank you very much. Very kind person. So I appreciate her.
Yeah. So do you know if you've had any previous lives that have not been on this realm?
Yeah.
You have.
That one, it's not as easy to remember for me, but I can remember being there and then coming here from there. And we're talking about way, way out. So far out that I think that we start dealing with entities that are thought forms. And it's a matter of what type of container is housing the thought forms, the personality. And the closer we got to this solar system, the more physical we became. And you start beginning to aggression of bodies, materializing that way, manifesting bodies, I think. That's what I remember. So yeah, and then everything down here is all messed up. It got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
You know, I used to ask, I have all the encounters and I hear all these people getting these visions of the future and all this stuff. So I asked, what's going to happen in the future? You know, and many times I've asked, and they never give me an answer. I think it's because maybe they don't know any more than we do because there's multiple timelines.
Yeah.
But they have said this in my mind is this will not happen again. And they show me our solar system, which doesn't orbit the way it shows us in science, but the Earth looks like a burned out cinder, ash, like an ash. And they said that won't happen again. So I was talking about this yesterday. I don't know how old the Earth really is. They're not telling us that out. But at one point, it's been destroyed and reconstituted. Something's happened.
Yeah, no, I believe that as well. Well, at least it's a good thing to know that it's not going to, it's a good thing to know that it's not going to happen again, or hopefully it's not going to happen again.
Hopefully not. I think maybe that's what we're going through right now, Andy. A lot of people talk about the pole shift, and it's really also a shift in consciousness. Because I don't want to be negative and I don't want to upset people, but to me, I'm sorry, this is very much a prison planet. And you've got, a faction here that is criminogenic, and you've got another angelic faction here, all white clean down here, like an island of lost souls. And the stuff I see, the way the biosphere is being destroyed, the murder going down here. I mean, man, even if you were like a Luke Skywalker and Sam Jackson, Mace Windu, you were Jedi's like that, you were flying through the solar system, you wouldn't even drop out of warp. You would keep going. He said, "Oh no, not that place. Keep going." I said, "Yeah."
It is.
They said first contact. The Vulcans weren't messing with Earth, man. It's too primitive.
Well, I think it's going backwards, isn't it? Though that's not helping. But no, it does. You just feel trapped.
Mm-hmm.
You're limited to what you can do, and.
Andy, I will say this, all right, and the work I do past life regressions too, and there's a couple different modalities of them I do. One of them is known generally as live between lives,
right?
And each one of these I've done at a certain point during this regression, the person's guide or angel just comes. I mean, without it being suggested by the hypnotist. They just come. Yeah. Okay. But the interesting thing is they take the client to a place that I call the place of translation and reconfiguration, where they go, and it often could be like a library, an office, somewhere that has ledgers or books, and they go through that specific life that the person just died from. Okay. And then the lessons are gone over and incorporated into the soul matrix. And then they reincarnate. But each one of the ones I've done, all of them have had a choice where they reincarnate. Nobody that I've done yet has said it was forced or I have to go here. Never. They make the choice. I even dealt with one of them a couple of weeks ago that this place of translation and reconfiguration was a craft.
Yeah.
A craft that was outside the exotime continuum, looking at universes. And then the soul, when it goes through the reconfiguration, is allowed to choose which universe it wants to go to reincarnate. Man, that's heavy, man. I mean, and that stuff there, I mean, sometimes I'm doing it because as a hypnotist, I'm really just like the maestro of unconscious subconsciousness or whatever. But I was sitting up there, I could barely conduct anything. So I was I was blown away by it. You know what I mean? It was pretty heavy. So I think just so much we don't know.
But why would we want to choose to come here?
Probably suffrage. Probably a glutton for punishment. That's what I'd imagine. I don't know. I'm sorry, man.
Oh yeah, I've been there a couple of times before.
I honestly don't have another answer for that, man. My oldest brother Reggie. He's almost 20 years older than me. He's 66, and he 18 years older than me. But he was watching one of my interviews and he came back. He was coming over. He said, "Man, I got upset, man, because those people were saying that we have a choice to come here and this is free will and all this and that." He said, he goes, "This is a hellish place. I didn't agree to come here on any quantum level. No way, not at all." And he looks at me, he goes, I started laughing, he goes, "Bro, I was like injected here or something." I started laughing.
He's probably, Can we go that one there? Yeah, we'll send you there. Quick, send them to the other one. It'd be something like that, won't it? It's got to be. But, you said, we don't know.
Yeah. I see somebody said, "Can we break free?" Yeah, I think that's part of really dealing, part of the problem of breaking free from this planet is that we inherit these traumas. I mean, my dear God, trauma walks around this planet like a member of the population. And then something about our personality doesn't die. We carry the trauma with us into the next incarnation. And then we inherit the trauma coming from our our ancestors too. You know what I mean? That's coming through too, and all that stuff gets tied up in different organs of the body, and it's such a limiting factor here. That's one thing, and most of the earthbound spirits that I've dealt with, they all stay here. It's so easy to not go into light. Once again, free will. They don't go in. They'll tell me I ran from it, or I didn't know what it was, so I didn't go into it, or I've been dogging people out my whole life, and I thought it was probably hell. Going there and bird.
Yeah. So I suppose then they've got the free will to choose, but then if they're not told or not knowing of what that is, then you're not going to choose something that you're unsure about, are you?
Well, in outside of this body, I found that the discernment is immense. More than it is in here to me. And also what when dealing with really quantum entanglement, how much we know instantaneously when we're out of this body is very interesting. So knowing where you're going and what you're doing and what you're discovering as a part of the prime creator, discovering yourself. I think there's a lot to be said about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, get that. Cheers for that, Barry.
Well, thanks, man. It's on cyberspace, so it just sounds cool. If people met me in person, they'd be disappointed. They'd be like, that guy doesn't talk about nothing. I don't walk around going Arcturians, Pleiadians. I'm not like that really. So
no, not yet.
No, not yet.
Still time. Oh, right. I've got another question from Nickname, who's the other moderator. And she would like to know, reptilians are known to take on human form. What does Barry think or know on this?
Well, I think Credo Mudua really got that going with everybody. And I've dealt with some people in the past that claim to have seen reptilian shapeshift.
Yeah.
But my understanding of it is it's more of almost a possession of the energy body that they're possessing actually. And when dealing with the energy body, it doesn't conform to the same perimeters as this physical body. So shape is one of them. Right. And they can start molding, mess with our shape and possess us in an energetic way. But interestingly enough, we've also got human vampire, energetic psychic vampires to do that as well. So you know what I mean? As far as leeching person's energy, anyway, that's what they're doing. But I do believe that's a possibility, definitely. And when looking at some of the lizard population on this planet, you've got a lot of capabilities. You've got chameleon capabilities of various types. Some of them can even change their shape to a degree. So that is going to replicate itself throughout the universe. So I would say definitely, yeah. I think I don't know. As far as actually seeing one of them walking around looking like us and then transferring to himself, I think it's possible, but I don't, haven't ever seen it actually happen. But I think it's possible. I wouldn't put it down people to say they've seen it at all. So.
Yeah. No, thank you. Appreciate that. You mentioned vampires. Yeah. I'm guessing you don't mean like the blood-sucking, fanged that turn into bats type vampire.
No, I meant like psychic, energetic people that are often they're like what's called petty tyrants sometimes. The people that you go work with that are desperate to be like middle management, and they're just, you get around them, they're just miserable people. They make your day miserable, and they feed on that. You know what I mean? So that's that type of psychic vampire like that. Now, interestingly enough, I had done a video, and it's something that Matt Delph was talking about, and it was bottled vampires. And I found that very interesting. You start looking back in legend, you have vampire hunters that were supposedly bottling vampires by putting blood in a small bottle, in a bottle, and then inviting them into the bottle. And it was always the question of how does the vampire get from the outside of the ground to the crypt that's in ground? How do they do it? They turn into mist. And what happens is when the vampire will turn into mist, go into the bottle, then they cap it, and plug it rather and throw it in a holy fire.
Ah, right. So
yeah, I just found that interesting because, you know, the jinn was often described as turning into mist as well. And it takes us into a whole genies in a bottle thing that doesn't look like
Genie in the bottle.
It doesn't look like
Disney and right? Everything else.
Or Will Smith, a blue Will Smith.
Yeah. But it just shows you how much Hollywood is hiding stuff in plain sight. It's showing you what's going on without actually telling you what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, you know.
Yeah.
But there's no other way almost to communicate with this population. You can try science, but that's not going to work.
No.
You know, mediumship is not accepted here. Psychic ability is hardly accepted. So entertainment's almost the only way.
Yeah. Thousands of channels and movies and everything else. So why not?
Subtle disclosure, you know.
Yes. Yeah. If only everyone knew.
Yeah. Well, you know, for me, one of the greatest subtle disclosures comes from your country. Doctor Who. Man, I'll tell you, especially the ones with like Tom Baker and John Pertwee, the earlier ones.
Tom Baker was the best ever.
Yeah, terrible effects, but I mean, the writing scientifically was really good. Yeah. Really good. And it helps some of us, and so does sometimes Star Trek, and in some ways Star Wars. It's different things that help us just to give us a frame of reference for what we're seeing during these experiences sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
No, appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Right, we've got a couple more questions for you. When I can get my mouse to work. So this is from UFO Joe, and he would like to know, I've heard that you should choose or say that you want to go home if you want to go further. Have you experienced that? I guess that's like the near-death stuff.
Near-death experience. I have a recalling of being offered to leave and transition over when I had my car accident in 2010, but I didn't leave. You know, I chose not to, you know, and that's only a flinting memory opposed to what happened during the early part of the accident that I saw my loved ones. Yeah. And mind you, I didn't think I was dead. Okay. And I seemed to be like still just talking to my loved one that actually had just died. We just buried him 2 days before I had my car accident.
Jeez.
And he was communicating with me, and my grandmother was there with her best friend, and they're standing about 15, 20 feet behind us. And, you know, she never spoke. Neither of them spoke. They're kind of looking around like my grandma's looking around like an owl, like that.
Yeah.
Like that. But my uncle's talking to me and telling me if I have another accident, get hurt like the way I was, I'd be there with them. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, nothing wrong with me. And I thought I had a body. I thought I slapped my chest and my legs. Like, see, now that was illusion, you know? But I said nothing wrong with me. And he had on these overalls and this, like one of those plant baskets you can put up upside down. It looks like a hat. He looked like Strawberry Finn. He looked ridiculous. Yeah. And I said, there's something wrong with you. Why are you dressed like that? You look ridiculous. That outfit sucks, man. You know how these Birkenstocks? That brother didn't dress like that. I said, wait, you know, and he said, you're not all right. You're not even close to all right. But if you have another accident like the one you had, you'll be here with us. And it scared me, you know. And he said something else when he turned around and said something else. I can't tell you what that was, but it scared me. And and I came up. When I came up, I was in what's called a fall risk bed for TBI survivors at the rehab hospital. Yeah. And that for me was called a clearing out for traumatic brain injury patient, where you remember everything. It comes back, boom.
Wow.
But I had actually already been awake and functioning for 2 weeks, but I can't remember that either. So. Yeah, so in that way, I did experience that to a degree, but I knew that I hadn't finished my work here, which apparently is just crazy stuff. So,
how long do you think you was there for then? Was it seconds, minutes, hours, days?
I don't know. You know, I was I had this car accident, and I actually died on the way to the hospital. Yeah, and then I was in a coma one of the brain injuries I took was a frontal lobe hematoma. So I went into a coma, and I also took what's called DFA, diffuse axonal, which is like a shaken baby syndrome. 92 to 95% of people that get DFA never awake, all fall into a coma, either induced or naturally. 95% don't awake. So I'm part of a very small percentage there. So I was in the coma for a little over 2 weeks, and it took about a month to remember who I was. So I can't tell you, and I've tried hard to chronologically figure out what was the near-death experience, what light was light, what was my brain responding to external stimuli. I've tried to differentiate it, but not so easy. You know, I know this much. Had I not come back here, I would have been over there with them on that side, period. And reality is real to the perceiver.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. I was just going to say quickly, have you not asked Jessica to remote view it?
Have I? Oh, sorry, was that?
Have you asked Jess to remote view what happened, or do you not want to go down that path?
No, because I can see images of several things that happened while I was apparently in the coma, whether before or after, you know. But no, I know that I was in enough pain to die, and trying to remember that might kill me. I'll pass.
No.
Yeah. I think in some ways my butt was out, and I think it was a blessing, man. I missed a lot of pain, brother.
Best to leave it and move on.
You know, I had this. One of the things that happened when I was in the coma, I would assume, is I'm standing on what seems to be a sandbar, not very wide, probably, you know, like 6 feet by 6 feet or something. And now that I've seen, since being awake, seen more pictures of what tsunamis look like when they're coming in. It looks like there's a tsunami over sea level falling in towards this island thing. And I hear this voice say, "Stay out of the water. Stay out of the water. It's the pain and it will kill you." And then I black out. I can't remember. You know what I'm saying? So that's enough for me to not want to revisit the time I was unconscious. Doesn't take much to deter me, brother.
Something like that. That's it. Fine. That's all I need to know. Let's move to the next bit. No, I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. You know, if it wasn't for that accident, I would not be sharing my experiences now. You know, my brother just went off the other day and said, "You make sure you tell people that you were having experiences your whole life. You were weird way before that accident." That was in 2010. Hey, thanks, bro. You know, but you know, in that way, the death force touched me a lot, and it altered some things. Like, I've always been a psychic and a medium. You know, every medium's a psychic, but every psychic's not a medium. And I didn't like the mediumship or the psychic stuff. I could at least turn it off or hide it where people wouldn't know. And then after I recovered, it augmented, and the information comes in such a strong wave now, even stronger than before, that people I've known my whole life started figuring it out. I started getting discovered, you know? So that's just, you know, one of those things that, had that not happened though, I always said, oh, one day I was somebody hiding on YouTube watching everybody's stuff. I was one of those people, never commenting, you know. And I said, one day I'm gonna tell what happened to me. But the truth is, Andy, that was just talk, man, because it doesn't do anything for your career. It doesn't make you any money. So it's not much point. You know what I mean? It was just talk. But then that accident happened, and I realized that it's really important that I do this work I came here to do and try to fulfill what my life purpose is, you know?
No,
we only got a second to do it. We're out of here. So
that's it. It ain't
maybe
long,
come back
again,
really. Maybe again and again, and come back again and again and again. And since we're devoid of soul life memories, we wouldn't remember. You may have incarnated 1,000 times here. Don't remember.
Yeah, that'd be me. I'll keep coming back, getting it wrong every single time. It won't even be a different way of getting it wrong. It'll be the same wrong every time.
You know, it's easy to get somebody here. It's the money, so they get people here. The barter system. That's how you get somebody here. You know what I mean? Like, I was talking to a client the other day, and telling them when dealing with evil forces, we have to learn how to project our intent of will. You know what I mean? And most people never really focus on doing that, learn how to do that, or practice it. But everybody does it involuntarily, trying to get that paycheck, want that money. The will's going towards that. They will that check right into existence. You know.
Definitely. Right. Got another question. I think this will take us to the break. So this is from Outer Limits magazine, Chris, and he would like to know, Barry said Earth is a prison planet. What proof does he have for this outlandish claim? He mentioned the term soul. What does he mean by soul?
I got one question. My answer is a question.
Yeah.
Do you remember your past lives? Do you remember where you were before you came here, or are you just talking? That's my question.
Right.
Well, he can type that in and answer that. Yeah.
My answer to that is I haven't got a clue.
Yeah. That's the key there. You know, outlandish claim. Do you have any memory of where you were before you got here? After? Have you dealt with anybody in past life regressions or anything? Okay, that's somebody just talking, trying to cause dissent. And that's okay. Everybody can have their own opinion. But I know this much. I have died myself. I have worked with a large earthbound population inside the energy field. I've worked with them outside the energy field. Does the individual talking there know what that is? Okay, meaning that earthbound spirits on the outside of the energy field, aka ghosts, I can perceive them and communicate with them. They'll give you they'll give you survival evidence for what it is they have the person they're attached to. But the ones inside the energy field are different. You can't perceive them. They express themselves as negative behavior patterns in the client. So that's what evidence I have, my friend. And if he can remember all his past lives, he needs to write them down there. And hey, I'll eat some crow. If he can't, he's just talking.
Nope.
Sorry.
Appreciate it.
Just being honest and being direct about it.
I appreciate it. Cheers, Barry.
Cheers keeps going down.
No, mine keeps going all funny as well. Right. I was going to ask you. So you said, going back to your visitations, did you mention that you had was it a praying mantis type cryptid?
Yeah, sorry, you mean the insectoid I encountered?
Yeah, the insectoid, sorry.
No, not a mantid. No, not a mantid. In fact, it was the size that was in the 4th grade. This is a smaller being. Looked very much like a grasshopper. Slight green tinge to the skin, no antenna, and the eyes look milky-like. On my YouTube channel, I've had several sketches done for me by Kasara. So I have that being, that's one being that gave me a name, when most of them don't seem to have it. And telepathically, you don't get anything. But this one said, I'm getting Xandar. When it's coming to my mind, it sounds like Yondar, though, but I'm getting a Z with it. So that's what I just put as a name. Yeah. Very few of them have names, you know?
Right. No, thank you. Right. Do you want to... Sorry, go on.
I was looking in the comments. That's all.
All right.
You know, I'm not, I will say this. I'm not one of the guests that's going to take crap from people that you're going to punk me out or come on me hard. He's full of it. Well, prove it. Do you even know what I'm talking about? What exactly am I full about? I talk about a lot of stuff. Go to my YouTube channel. There's hundreds of videos on there. Pick out exactly what I'm full of and illustrate it. Don't just say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like saying somebody's crazy if you've not actually done a test with them. Do a test to see what are they insane. Do an actual cognitive test, DSM-5. Don't just talk it, be about it.
Yeah. Oh, appreciate it.
That's what's going to change with this world is people being afraid to talk about their experiences, being ridiculed when they talk about their experiences. That's as simple as, Andy, how many people have seen a Sasquatch? It's amazing that we'll never tell anyone.
Oh yeah,
Even people that are rangers even seen them. I'm not telling nobody. I'll get fired. Or people say I'm crazy. It wouldn't
surprise me if there's more people that have seen them and not said anything than people that owning up to having that in contact.
Yeah. And it gets so weird with them when looking at what's being said about the DNA that's been analyzed. You've got that mitochondrial that is human, and that can be traced to certain groups. But you've got that nuclear DNA, that father side, that is completely unknown in GenBank. And most of the species on this planet have been logged in GenBank. Not all, but a lot of them. Enough to where this is very peculiar. And we start dealing with things that is maybe not them just being ape-like or whatever, them having these paranormal abilities. Does that come from that nuclear DNA? We can't dismiss that. We don't know.
Yeah, no.
But instead, we're arguing if they're even real or not.
Yeah. I'm just going to pop this up on the screen.
Excuse me.
So there you go. Just about previous comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, sorry you feel that way, but I don't owe you anything.
Oh no. Yeah, but that's not to you. That's to the person that was.
Oh, sorry. My fault. I thought they were dogging me.
I just don't want to go down this.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's nice to say that, and it is like that a lot, And we can't keep everybody happy, but the truth is, the people listening in your group, I know, are very aware. I can see that by the stuff they're saying. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are looking for answers. I know I am. I don't know everything. I don't know that much at all, really. And in cyberspace, I look cool though, but in person, I don't know nothing. But in that way, we're building a tapestry, and it's important. Andy, in about 2 weeks, I'm gonna be going to a conference. I didn't know if I'd do anymore, but I'm going to be doing a conference that the Journey of Truth is hosting, and I know there are going to be a lot of secret space program people there.
Yes.
And I think it's really a good opportunity who've had negative experiences. And now with the clients I've had that have nothing to do with this UFO thing or extraterrestrial down into it, but then they have these things going on with this SSP type of stuff. It's very real. So I acknowledge that. And I think we can find some type of a medium between those of us that have had the positive experiences and the negative, and just figure out what the heck is going on. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that, and I think that's the whole reason I came forward. So,
yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you. I was going to say something, but it's completely gone. I was just sorting something out in the chat.
Another roast. It's another roast. It's another roast, man.
No. No, not yet. He's a lot more polite than I would have been. Put it that way.
Well, hey, at least some people noticed it. Whoever that was in that left thing, thank you for that. That's very cool.
Yeah. So, no. Most 99.9% are good. So, but yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like we want to get this out there, and why? I do this. I was gonna say I don't do this for fun, but I do it for fun. It started off as a hobby, and it's just I'm not doing it to have a laugh, and
it's self-fulfilling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's to get the knowledge out there. I'm learning. I don't know anything about anything. I know what happened to me. I know about what happened to, like yourself, that you've just told me, and when Rob was on, what happened with him and his missus at the time when they was on the boat. And then everyone else.
Very interesting story.
Yeah. And then all the other people that have been on and their encounters and what they've gone through. And it's not even about comparing what happened. It's not about, well, this theory is real or that theory is real or that doesn't exist, but this exists. For me, my theories and my encounters, me and you could be at the same place at the same time, and we have two completely different encounters, even though we're witnessing the same thing. So it doesn't matter about all the other stuff that I've just said. It's about how you perceive it and what goes on at that time and how you take it in and deal with that then for the rest of your life.
It's kind of like you're in a group of 10 people and you've got two people going, look at that UFO right there. There's a big craft there. And you got two people see it going, whoa. Everybody else is going, I don't see it. Where? You know, very much targeted contact. And to speak for like in the Star Trek way, you wouldn't think that the entire Federation, all Starfleet, would stop what they were doing to collectively communicate with just you as a whole. And that's exactly what's happening a lot on the conscious level. You know, that's why when people that have seen it, there's somebody in the audience that must have seen this, I'm picking this up, seen a UFO and just like that. And they saw it, they're observing it for a while, maybe only lost, 20, 30 seconds. Yeah. But, the amount of things that can get transmitted and I guess the word now is downloaded, people like, that can get downloaded in those seconds that you're watching that thing is amazing. Yeah. There's a reason you might be seeing it, especially if it was before the era of the drones.
Yeah. I'll just tell you a story quickly. This is going back to probably about 20, 25 years ago. I was with my mate. We'd gone walking his dog or something. It was middle of summer and was at this quarry and there's like a reservoir and all that there. Mm-hmm. So we're walking back to the car, just about to get in it, and there's a dry stone wall. So I'm opening the doors to get in, and my mate goes, "Oh my God, did you just see that?" I'm like, "No, what?" He went, "It looked like a cow with wings. It jumped off this wall and gone down." So I reluctantly went over to this wall and looked over, but I couldn't say anything. Now we was kind of both looking in the same direction, but I did not see a thing. You're not going to miss a flying cow, are you? Really?
No.
And this person wouldn't make it up. They're not that type of person. What they see is what they say, sort of thing, and that's it. There's no ifs or buts or anything.
Wow, a cow, huh? That's pretty big.
I don't think it was a cow. I think they was just using the size reference of it.
Wow. Oh, gotcha.
He said it dropped off this wall, but he said it had wings.
Mm-hmm. Well, that takes us into something I've talked about a little bit, which is these, these beings that jump in and out of our awareness. I think we talked about that a little bit the last show I was on here. And like things like not just the chupacabra, but you've got I want to say jumping Jack Flash, but that's not what he was called. Jumping.
Yeah, the one in the UK.
Yeah. Him.
Spring Heel Jack.
Thank you. Spring Heel Jack. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and there's several of them.
And that was it.
Yeah, and there's several of them. Even the Mothman that just jump into our field of awareness and then they jump away. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think there's just something to be said about that when we deal, because when we're dreaming, we have truly other beings. Like when you realize that you're in the middle of an electron impulse and phantasmagorical images, the key is to isolate what other energy generating beings are in your field of awareness when you're dreaming. It's because they can do much more when we're dreaming than here in the third dimension. It's not so much as orbs and little flinting things we see in the peripheral vision, which is normally in black and white.
Quick question for you before we do go to a break. I did a podcast yesterday and we was talking about dreams. Mm-hmm. And my question, even though I was being interviewed, my question was, what if when we're dreaming, it's not your brain relaxing and winding down and all this stuff's going through from what's gone on throughout the day. What if when you go to sleep and then when you go into your dream, is it possible that could be some form of astral projection? So you're actually going off to another realm, another dimension, and then you're living that. So your soul leaves your body and goes to this dreamland, wherever it may be. And this is why all this weird, messed up stuff kind of happens there. Because it's not the normal, what you used to.
It's possible. Like I think it was Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh and a few of the gurus had said that we went to the moon when we dreamed. that we not just incarnated through the moon we came here, but that we also go back to the moon when we dream. But I don't know. That's a good question, because there's so much that we can create in our minds that can become a manifested thing that it's hard to say. You know what I mean? And the truth is, when we experience not just another dimension, another reality, another density, or a being from that, we tend to experience it in a dream-like type of way, because it's perception, you know? So does that kind of answer your question? That's a tough question.
Yeah. Sorry for throwing that one at you.
No, that's all right. I mean, it can kind of just be a little bit of both, I think. You know what I mean? That sometimes I know that, because I know like one of the gates of dreaming is when you have an object in your dream that is completely standing out. Like when I crossed this gate, for me, I went back home and I had cleaned my apartment, and I was actually dreaming, and there's this Ming vase on this glass table I'd broken 2 years before. But I'm looking at this thing, I'm all proud of myself. Like, man, it looks great. The whole place is cleaned up. And later on, I started thinking, like, man, that thing's worth $1 million. I ain't got no alarm system here or nothing. What is it? You know what I mean? You start realizing, you start getting dream attention and realizing that you're dreaming. And then that's when I turned my gaze toward this thing, and it turned into a ball of energy and went into the wall. But, you know, I'm not a skilled dreamer. I don't have a lot of dream attention. If I did, I would have been able to follow that being through the wall to whatever realm it was going to. But I'm not a dreamer like that, and I'm not trying to mess with that. So,
just one more quick question before we do go for the break. Sorry, I know I keep saying this, but
that's all right.
Do you think that it's gone? Completely gone?
Are you like me? I get excited. I do that. I get excited and I lose it real quick.
So it's like, one of them is, so do you ever get where you dreaming, but then you're dreaming about a dream that you've had before, or when you wake up from a dream, the dream felt more real than reality?
Not exactly the way you described it, but I've had dreams like that.
Yeah.
Where I suspected that, that they were so vivid. And the one thing about dreaming is that the other beings, whoever they may be, can meet us halfway. It's a lot easier then, and if you're somebody that is a quote unquote dreamer, as born in this world, you can just sustain dream attention. When you fall asleep, you're still as almost alert and as cognitive as you are right now.
Yeah.
That's a very special person that can do that, a dreamer. I'm what they used to call a stalker, a gatherer, because I have to act a certain way here in the third dimension that's non-conformative, non-routine like, to free up enough energy so that I have enough to sustain dream attention when I'm sleeping.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, which is not easy. You know what I mean? Just to cross that first gate of dreaming for me, looking at your hands, man, that took me forever. Man, right. I was on the edge of my bed, like, man.
I think I'm the dreamer one then, because as soon as I go into a dream, a lot of the time it just feels so real.
Mm-hmm,
and then when I wake up from it, it's like, oh, I'm here. I'm disappointed that I'm not where I was.
You know what's interesting? What I always thought, and now from my work, what I've seen, when we die, for a lot of us, it's kind of like when, if you've been sleeping, like you get a real deep sleep, Andy, like 10 hours or something, 8 to 10 hours. And then that alarm goes off, you reach over, you hit it off, but for about a minute, you're just kind of, oh, you know what I mean? Then you get up, get your coffee or whatever. But for a minute or two, you're just discombobulated.
Yes.
And I think when we come out of the body, it's a lot the same like that. And especially if you had a death that was shocking, you go into shock. You know what I mean? That causes people not to go into the light and other things. But it's during that time where we're kind of just hit the alarm button and we're kind of just trying to get that daze off, that others can come and try to impersonate our guides, impersonate and false light and things like that. But once that fog clears, you have discernment. Use that discernment,
Yeah.
But that's and that's something a lot of time out here. They'll tell me, the earthbound spirit will tell me, Well, I didn't go to light because I got cheated. I was only 19. It wasn't my time.
Yeah,
Something
yeah,
like that, you know. Yeah. So.
yeah. No, thank you for that.
Did
Right,
that answer that? I'm trying to answer your questions direct without being this guy that just goes so far in left field. I do that
It's
sometimes.
fine. No, appreciate it. No. Right, we are actually going to go for a break now. I don't have any more questions yet. So we are going to do a 5-minute break, and we'll see you guys after that. Is that all right with you, Barry?
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Excellent.
Maybe I'll get my chair to sit up. Pretty soon I'm going to be underneath the thing on you.
I bet I've got to tilt my monitor. I've not set it up right. Right, see you in 5.
All right, see you in a minute. Thank you.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And we are back, I think. Yes, we are. Oh, that was good timing.
All right, back on. Or
Yeah. All right, there we go. Oh, sorry, I just got an itch. Right. Oh, so what happened next for you? What was the next big thing?
Sorry, you mean as far as contact, or
Yeah.
where'd you want to pick up at? Where are we at? I'm sorry, man.
That is all right. So you said about like having the contacts and then the visitations and all that was going on, and then it was like a really big hit when you was around 7 years old. So then, as obviously with the car accident and that completely changed, which it would, I presume, anyone changed your whole outlook on everything. So then, after that, was there more visitations?
It would have been when I was about the ages of 17 to 28. I started having all the physical ones that were all missing time, and that's when things really had ramped up. And then after 28, the type of contact for me had changed. It became much more of constant, intense telethought, telepictures, things like that. Always at their discretion. Still to this day, they don't always respond immediately if I try to think something to them or something like that, and I'll get something that may come in maybe 2 days. There's like a time lag, and I can't always force my contact either. They've always been the ones that kind of initiated, which is all right with me. So in that way, some things about CE5 and stuff, I don't get real into that. And another reason is because honestly, calling in those craft, you don't know who's on board some of them, and they come in too close, and suddenly you're missing 5 or 6 hours of your life. It's not always all that fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll get that. Cheers. So, sorry. So have you moved around? Wait. So where you live now, have you always lived in that area? Have you stayed in the same part of town or whatever?
Yeah.
So you've not traveled around living in different parts of the US or anything like that?
I mean, I've traveled, but not lived. No.
Yeah. No, because I was going to ask you, have you had has anything happened while you've been moving about? But if you've not really moved anywhere, then
it'll get me in trouble again.
It's not a good question.
I was invited to speak at this location called the SETI Ranch in Washington, United States, just outside of Oregon. And I spoke there in 2016, 2017, and then again in 2019. And each time I went out there, from the starting day, I got blasted perceptually. And I think that there is what they call a Stargate out there, but there's actually a device inside of Mount Adams that's called J.J. Hertock's Keys of Enoch book. This book here, we'll call it an OR station. All right, there's a station in there people can look up. It's called an OR station. That is what's in Mount Adams. It scans people's soul life memories and then produces some type of an orb technology that will push your perception further when it gets in your aura, in your biofield. So whatever's out there, that place, I started having. I went out there, and I mean, from the get-go, I started having Sasquatch interaction. And to be quite honest with you, it happened a week and a half before I even got there. I didn't notice it as any type of a telethought that I was accustomed to, but I went on this obsession about a week and a half before I went there to about albino Sasquatch. I was on the internet. I was watching everything, Thaker, Thucker, M.K. Davis, you name it, all the way, everything about albino Sasquatch. But it felt like a minor obsession opposed to some type of a communication. Right. And then when I get to this place, first of all, I'm from the Midwest, and I was somewhat unprepared for actually how remote that ranch was and how far up in the mountains it was.
Literally in the middle of nowhere.
Stuff like wood stoves and stuff like that, man. My brother has not pitched a tent since I was a Cub Scout. That was back in the early 80s. Wasn't ready, not ready. Anyway, so. But as soon as I got on property, I started feeling like I was being watched. And then also, I had a number, that was the first year, 2016, so many experiences out there. Including someone else walking with me that worked out there. And we were talking, we see this UFO and watch it go over from by Mount Adams to over this place called Sleeping Lady. Right. And it goes down, and it's morphing before it does it, but it goes down behind the mountain, then all of a sudden re-illuminates.
Oh. And
when I tell you that, I'm saying I can see it through the mountain. And I thought, okay, I'm really high up in the mountains here. Maybe the mountain air has got to maybe it's done something to me, So it must have, this thing must have come down in front of the mountain, descended in front of the mountain, and then re-illuminated.
Right.
But then it did it. It came up. It did it again. And there's somebody standing here with me, the guy Albert that works there, and he's a young guy. He's literally huddled over like a football player. Go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And I asked him, hey, man, what are you seeing, man? Because I'm sorry, but this type of delusion is not shared. Just in case the mountain air got to me or something's gone wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he said, it's impossible. It's impossible. This is a trick. I said, never mind that. What are you seeing? He said, I'm seeing that ship through the mountain. What is this? Some type of hologram? And I'll tell you, it's one thing for me to sit here now and say, hey, it's a holographic universe, the holographic principle. Stephen Talbot was a contactee. That's fine. But, when you really see something like that, it threw me for a loop, bro. Science all aside, it threw me for a loop, and it was hard to accept perceptually, seeing something that they call octopole light or dipole light that's perceivable by the third eye. But it was just something enough to where another thing I had our friend Jessica Jones remote view blind target to see because I mean it was so intense what happened to me out there in 2016 when I got invited to speak again in 2017. I went and got a professional regression done myself 2 weeks before I went out there because I had to know what I was dealing with. I mean, you have no idea because I don't sleep good at night. I'm up most of the time, and I was having the few hours I would sleep, I felt like I was inside that mountain or something, or going out there, 2 a.m. looking at that mountain, watching UFOs and stuff, hearing those Sasquatches out there yelling and then putting rocks on my doorstep and all this crazy stuff that went on out there. So I think some of us are like like for me and probably you and most of your audience, they think they're chasing this stuff. They're chasing the paranormal. They're chasing the experiences when really it's chasing them, chasing you. You know what I mean? Yeah, that type of a deal there. And I was just unprepared to get blasted like that. I'm not a young man, so I thought the days of having these experiences, Andy, that just stopped my world were done. But apparently not.
Well, that's the thing. Most of my experiences, I've just been sat watching TV or just gone for a drive. Nothing. I've not gone searching for anything. Gone for a family day out or just chilling in the house. And then it's bang back. And it's like, what is happening? Why now? But it's true. It is so true.
And sometimes I think my mother used to have all these old sayings from like back in the 30s. And one of them is a watched pot never boils. Yeah. I think those of us that are just hounding or taking sticks and cracking them on trees. I mean, that's got to be about the biggest joke for any Sasquatch ever. That's probably better than going to the movies. What are they going to do now? Are they going to howl? Are they going to yell? You know what I mean? Yeah, they're going to bang some more sticks. I mean, that must be really funny for them to watch people go out there and do that. It must look ridiculous. All the cameras, like they're creeping up on anybody,
Yeah. Well, it's mad, though. It really is, of what we try and do to get communication with whatever, whether it's a spirit, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Dogman, ET, whatever it is you're trying to do. I said they're probably just sat there laughing at us.
I'll throw one at you. Okay.
Go
on. One of the reasons I agreed to do this is because I detected something on you when we first started interacting.
Oh.
And what that is something, and it's a term that I stole from Doctor Who. It's called Artron energy, something they call that runs the TARDIS. I stole that term and modified it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that in reality, for those of us that have had these experiences with the beings that are of a higher frequency, higher vibration, not the lower ones, but the higher ones, you know, a lot of these craft are actually grown around these makos we're talking about, these wormholes. Right. So the engine itself is displaced and it emits some type of a radiation. And I think the beings emit this too. It's like, it's not radiation, sorry, life energy that irradiates our cells. And I can detect it on other contactees. I detected it on you, even through this deal here. I knew you had some sort of contact. You're a contactee of some sort. You know, like Jessica's another example. I knew she was a contactee. We became friends, and she would talk about that for a long time, not even in person. And I finally said, "Hey, look, I know you are. I can feel it." You know, and it's so interesting when I've met some of these people that are so well known in this industry. And they're the people on the forefronts, and they claim to have all these experiences. And when I meet them, they don't have any of this Artron energy. Why not? I'm just asking. That's all. You know what I mean? And it's a trip because when I go to those conferences, the attendees is just the attendants are incredible. It's full of psychics and mediums, contactees, all of them. And if you're somebody getting up there lying, a lot of them are going to know. Those beings will tell on you. You know what I mean? So it's quite interesting, but I felt it on you. So that's why I definitely wanted to do this. And I think that's something to recognize. Like, for example, there's a video on my channel dealing with melanin dominant extraterrestrials.
Right. Okay.
And I did it with this quote unquote big time whistleblower. All right.
Yeah.
And when I initially met, first of all, I didn't like the bureaucracy surrounding this individual and these others that are these whistleblowers. Don't like it, okay? Because it messes up getting anything done in this field and really getting the attention of true scientists and getting type 1 technology that can save this place and save our species. That's what's really important right now. Anyway, this individual, when I meet him, they run up and hug me, okay? And look, I'm not the hugging type. Right. You know, I guess beautiful women might say, "Oh, you hugged me once." Well, that's a little different, but I'm not really a big time hugger. You know what I mean? But I let this individual go ahead and do it because I knew I'd get a read on him. And you know, the first thing that I detect is this Artron energy. So beside, and it was pretty strong. So beside the fact of all the bureaucracy that I don't like, I had to set that aside, Andy, and deal with the fact that I know this individual has either been on board a craft that's emitting that energy from one of these makos, or he's been around the beings that are giving their life energy to the craft to sustain it to function. He's been around one or the other. Sorry, they've been around one or the other. So I had to deal with that first. And I try to, so that's just one thing. Just throw that out. And I think a lot in that way, a lot of contactees can kind of feel each other in a certain way and pay attention to that. It's important. Real quick, I stole it from Doctor Who because they started revealing that this Artron energy was permeating the people's cellular structure that was on the TARDIS. So when they come back here, the Doctor always disappears and dumps people pretty much. He just takes off. But they keep an eye on these people. They can detect this Artron energy and trying to figure out when he's going to materialize, if he's going to come back to them. And I think that it's the same way. I think we can be tracked in the same type of way by big brother agencies. I'm going to shut my mouth now before I get in trouble. Or something weird happens. Black cats running around in here, man, or whatever, with black dogs, Anubis hanging out right here, brother. No, I'm just kidding, man. That was a joke, Andy. That was a joke.
No, it's good. How do you pick up on this energy? Is it? Do you know how you do it, or is it just part of?
I just feel it. Yeah, I just feel it. I feel it on people. It's I don't want to call it innate, but it's involuntarily. I just feel it. It's interesting, and since then I've had so many other people tell me, well, that's a good name for it. I feel that too from people. Some people who come up to me, so I feel it on you. You know what I mean? Even the individual that I mentioned, after they get done hugging, they're looking at me like this. They're going, we hosted that other conference together, right? I said, no. And they're looking at me going, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. At that point, I only done 5 conferences. I said, I've done 5, and you weren't at none of them. And then later on, they're telling that Australian piece of junk, man, he said he's seen you on ships before. They say they've seen you on ships before, like with the council of these beings that were like higher beings. They've seen you before, stuff like that. So, it's very interesting, and I don't know where it begins and ends for all of us.
Right.
Because
that's just put a thought into my head. So when we bump into someone, you think you know them from somewhere else, and you have the conversation of where they work, where they went to school, where they grew up, all that kind of stuff, and you've worked out between you both, you've never crossed paths, but you know that person from somewhere. Do you think then the possibility that you've met them up there, could that be what it is?
Well, I can tell you what I've experienced, and experienced in sessions also. That deja vu feeling with other people is often associated with them being members of a past life and associating with us in a past life. And then you get around them, they have certain mannerisms, certain things they do, or you get into a situation that's like a situation you were in before with them, and it seems to like echo through time or something. You know what I mean? And I think that's a little separate from the deja vu so many of us feel during high times of high solar activity. That's when time shifts happen, and these changes in the timeline happen during times of high solar activity. But and also I think being around technology that is time technology in the private sector that we don't hear about, really advanced stuff like time generators and things like that. I think for some of us, we get near the vicinity of that. The byproduct is we start experiencing deja vu quite a bit.
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Right. So next question is from nickname again. Can Barry remote view / astral travel?
I'm not a remote viewer. I have had I took a class at this conference a few years ago with the lady, Princess Janae, that used to remote view with Farsight Institute. And I've dealt with Jessica. I'll give Jessica targets and stuff, but I'm not technically a remote viewer. I took that class and found I was actually a little bit good at the type she was doing, but I'm also psychic, so I can just see. And when I say I see by energy directly. So I often don't need to remote view, But for the sake of data, that's one of the reasons I really enjoy working with Jessica, is because the stuff that she'll remote view, it will back up some things I've had experience-wise, or it just because she's using data, and the data is more easier to refute than somebody just saying, "Oh, it happened to me." Because I can't prove it. None of us can prove any of this stuff. You know what I mean? That's the worst. That's just the way it is. So it's a matter of just, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, as you said earlier, it's fun too, man. I enjoy it. It's fun to stick your hand down the rabbit hole a little bit. Things like
we get dragged in all the way down to your feet.
And it's cool because what if it's not real? The remote viewer will tell you, I looked at the target, there's nothing. You know what I mean? Which means the stuff, your experiences aren't real, or there's a mental deal or whatever. And I knew it wasn't, but that even especially showed it. I didn't need the validation, but there are other people that have had experiences like me that it might help. So that counts,
No, thank you.
Or experiences a lot heavier than mine, actually. So.
Yeah. So we was talking about manifestation before. So do you believe that if we have that thought process so strong that we are able to manifest something, whether as an individual or in a group.
Yes, yes, yes. Manifesting things that are unmanifesting, bringing them into the manifestation. I do believe that, and I think it's not a lot different than what was it what Da Vinci said. He said that the structure was already there. He just had to knock away the extra pieces. You know what I mean? So that
yeah. Have you ever done that?
Which part?
On the manifestation.
Can you? You know, I've been more into communication or altering my perception more so. That's probably as close as I got into that was unmanifesting, trying to practice invisibility.
Right.
And there's a couple of steps to that. The first step is learning how the eye actually operates. That puts a person at a serious disadvantage.
Yeah.
People, see a line of sight. They only look so high, so far up or down. People see in peripheral black and white. Those are things. And furthermore than that, people see motion first, then color, then silhouette.
Right.
So if you see those things I just mentioned there, puts a person at disadvantage pretty easy. But then there's the other part too of invisibility, which entails trying to gather a type of orgone electron cloud around you that actually bends the light. So that's something I tried stuff like that. I had practiced. So.
Yeah.
And I found for me it didn't always work right then, and then a year and a half later, somebody's telling you, "I was standing there, you just disappeared." The stuff starts manifesting in weird ways that you don't expect. You put the energy in, and it comes back at a later time.
Yeah.
I'm one of those cats. I practice these paranormal techniques. I wanted immediate results. If it didn't give me immediate results when I was younger, I go on the next thing, practice something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're not waiting about.
Yeah.
What about levitation?
Concerning people or craft?
People. On this planet.
You ever seen how the gurus levitate and how David Blaine and them were levitating? You ever seen that? That stick those cats are on, that stick?
Yeah,
that's a questionable one, okay? And the reason why I say that in terms of, I've heard many reports of Sasquatch people saying they see them levitating.
Yeah.
As in going up mountain cliffs, like they're almost levitating, not doing the things they should be doing. So in that way, the modification of the gravity field can be done, but it's not like what we're seeing, on board these craft or anything, a technology or anything like that. So I'm not as much on levitation because I just think I've seen too much of it being hoax. So it's a little questionable. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, come on, I see some of those cats on those sticks. They look pretty real. You see it too, I know. Yeah, I was like, man.
But the reason I'm asking, I kind of had an experience. I've not spoke about it much. I was only about 14, 15, and it happened, but I didn't know it was happening until after it had happened. So it was during like summer break, and we're all messing about down the river and that, and there's a bridge going over. At one end, so there's a sewer pipe that runs through this bridge underneath it. So at one end, there's like a big concrete block with a drain. So if it gets blocked, they can lift the lid on it and gain access to it. So we was waiting for a couple more people to come over, and there's me and a lad and this girl. There's three of us there waiting. So I'm holding on to like a metal bar, and we're chatting away. I step backwards with one foot, carry on talking. Step back with my other foot, still talking. This like 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds, whatever. I look down, both my feet, I'm stood on midair. There's nothing underneath me. And I'm not gripping this metal bar. I'm just got my arm on it like that, just like resting. But as soon as I look down, as soon as I realised there was nothing underneath me, dropped and fell. I dropped about I think it was about 8 to 12 foot, and then rolled down to the bottom near the river. I was unconscious for a couple of minutes, but when I got up, I had a little scratch on my elbow, and I'd split my pants. That was it. But I didn't know it was happening until it's like a cartoon. You know, like Roadrunner and all that, and they go off the edge of the cliff, and then they look down, and then they drop. It was one of them moments.
Man,
and it's not something that I've tried to recreate, to be honest with you, because I didn't know how it happened, and I don't really fancy dropping again.
You know, that's heavy. I only have one possible explanation. Doesn't mean it's the right one, but it's just so odd what you just said. But you know, there's the author Carlos Castaneda. I believe it's his book called The Fire Within, in which he describes being thrown off this precipice and this abyss. And what was said was that he did all this training to develop his dream body, to be fully cognitive and presence in his dream body, and for his dream body to have power. That's what he was an apprentice for. And when he jumped off this abyss, they said when they pushed him off this abyss that if his training was done correctly, his dream body would emerge from the physical and save his physical body. So that would be like a type of anti-gravity right there, or levitation. Yeah. And of course he survived. Now I'm not saying that part of his story is real or anything, but just when dealing with things of how the dream body, the energy body may come out and encompass the physical body, that may have been what that was. Why you had that gravity modification field around you like that. It's just food for thought. I don't know if that's right, but
I've not got a clue. I just know like I said earlier, I know what happened, and that's probably one of the only times where something has happened and there's been other people about. There's two other witnesses, and one of them I am still friends with and have contact with, and he remembers it. So
they saw. They didn't say anything to you when you're standing like in midair.
Then I dropped, and like I said, I rolled down and smacked my head on a few rocks and that, and was like, I landed about 2 foot from going in the river. My mate, I'm not going to say his name, he thought I was dead. He really thought, because I dropped that far and then rolled and fell. Yeah. And he said I was out for about 2.5 minutes. And then I just got, he was panicking. And then him and the girl they was both panicking. They was trying to get down to where I was. And then I just sat up and started laughing, like nothing had happened. And then they told me what had happened, and then that's when reality kind of kicked in. Even they said you stood there and you was like, there's nothing under your feet. We were just like, how? And then next thing, smack, gone.
So quick, yeah. Essentially, it makes you wonder if you hadn't noticed how long it would have sustained, you know?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know how long. I stepped back, like I said, with one leg, my left leg, and then my right. It doesn't matter what order, but I think it's only a few seconds. I don't think it wasn't minutes. I know that it was less than 10 seconds. Probably nearer to like 3, 4, 5. But
question: when you first made the step backwards or whatever, when you made the step. Could you have gotten hurt if you would have fallen initially, like really hurt bad?
Oh, yeah. Because this concrete block, like I said, was like under the bridge. It was like at the one end of it. The drop from the concrete block to the ground was about 8 foot. I'd say 8 to 12 foot. So as I stepped back off it, so I would have done that. I'd have done the splits in midair, and
You know, that almost qualifies did your dream body stop you from hurting yourself? Is that what that was? I mean, it's almost as good of an explanation as anything. So that way you didn't get hurt even worse, or break things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just food for thought, Otherwise, I can't fully explain it, but it's a very interesting experience. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah. So I've only spoke about that a couple of times. something that never really comes up in conversation. Oh yeah, and by the way, I levitated, then fell off a bridge and rolled down. But I remember rolling down, and then not all the way down, like part way down, and then I woke up at the bottom, and don't remember the bit in between. So, like he said I was lay there for about 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is all I know. And honestly, it was just like a little cut. I've had worse paper cuts. And I was checking my bones. I was getting my mate to check the back of my head and my back and the back of my legs and all that. Like cuts, any wounds ripped open, anything like that. Like no broken finger, nothing was broken.
Good deal. See that makes it interesting right there, both of those. And and if so, even though you fell and the physical body took over, was the dream body still trying to cushion your fall? You know what I mean? It's just food for thought. Good an explanation as anything. Some external force was helping, or internal.
There was definitely something was going on. That's all I know. But I'll just add that as I was rolling, even though I could feel my body hitting these rocks, there was no pain. I wasn't going like, when you bang yourself and it's like you're flinching. There was none of that going on. But then I've never fell off a bridge and rode down a hill before, so I don't know how you react.
Wow, yeah.
But yeah, it was weird, very weird.
It's true, definitely.
Yeah, so that's why I was asking about the levitation thing. I wasn't trying to trick you or anything. I just
no, I didn't feel like that. No, I just didn't have. I didn't have a solid answer. Even after you're telling your encounter, I don't have a real good explanation except for what I gave you, because that's just pretty interesting,
Yeah. No, thank you. Cheers for that.
No problem.
Right, I'm just gonna quick scroll, see if there's any more questions. Sorry, I'll only be 1 minute.
That's all right. I see one. How do babies know how to swim when they're born? Good question. I know I sure didn't.
Hate swimming.
I didn't learn until I was in the 4th grade.
Really? No, I just don't enjoy it. It's just not my thing. But anyway, right. Anyone got any more questions? I have got an email question.
Sure. Those are good questions too. I appreciate everybody.
Sorry, one sec. I just got to read through it.
Thanks, JoJo. Nice thing to say. Probably like this guy's boring, man. That's why nobody has any questions.
No, it's right. I've got a question. So I'm going to break it down because it's a few different questions in one. So first bit, reincarnation is a simplification of the Christian reward for being a good Christian or other member of another religion argument. So why has Attila the Hun or Napoleon Bonaparte or Adolf Hitler not been reincarnated?
Well, how do we know they haven't?
Yeah, because
you know what I mean.
The same person or the same type of person.
Mm-hmm. Just because they didn't rise to a place of notoriety doesn't mean they didn't reincarnate.
Yeah. So
that's kind of way I look at that. It seems to be. What's that?
Sorry, go on. No, sorry, I didn't mean to go ahead.
No, I said it seems to me that if you look at things like even what I've done, but also like that show, Ghosts Inside My Child. Some of these kids are reincarnating fairly quickly after they pass. The one kid was saying he died in 9/11. That was years ago that he said that. So stuff like that,
Yeah.
We don't really know.
Well, if they do sorry, I was just going to say, if they do reincarnate, they're not necessarily going to come back to this Earth, this planet. What, they could reincarnate to another realm?
Well, I think if you've done, it's the relationships with others is what goes to the other side. So if you're somebody that has just tormented people and hurt people, your own panoramic life review is enough to scare you to a vibration lower than this one. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to incarnate any vibrations lower than this one. It would be complete hell. You know what I mean? Right now we'd be in a corner with some type of weapon, because there'd be maniac barbarians jumping out with mallets and rah! It'd be horrible down here.
Oh yeah,
the big old ants running around eating people. Whatever the case is, But I mean, it's
not really far off that now, though, is it?
Not much. And to incarnate any level lower than this would be horrible. Or, I've said some religions, I believe, say that, you do certain things, you incarnate as something like a rock or a mountain or something that is not as, the same as what we are now. But I can't say I believe in the transmigration of the soul as much. But, who knows?
No. Right. So we do have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
So this is from Jojo. And she would like to know, does Barry have a thought on how many times you can be reincarnated?
No. Due to the fact that we get robbed of our soul life memories, I sometimes think it might be infinitesimal. I don't know. You know what I mean? But it seems like, though, it seems like generally most of the people that I've worked with and myself seem to have had around, some like 3-4 lives here, any two, somewhere between 2 and 4, but I've caught 4 quite a bit. Seems to be kind of a popular number, but that's only the people I've worked with, JoJo, so that doesn't stretch the gamut by any stretch. But so yeah.
Can I just add a bit onto that? How and when was the first time you found out that you'd had a previous life?
Oh, that I knew what I was actually, when I figured out what it was, is probably a better way I can answer it. Man, it was years. It was years. The first time it really resonated, I read 2 books. I was reading them at the same time. Excuse me. One of them was Edgar Cayce on Atlantis, and another one was Initiation by Elizabeth Hayes. That book really resonated and started throwing things out, like some things she was talking about, I had a vivid memory of previous to reading that book. So those would be 2 that really kind of solidified that, okay, these are past life memories. Because before that, as a kid, you think maybe you just have a big imagination. Right. Like, okay, so I'm picking something up right now, so I'll say it. All right. Just like some members in the audience, maybe it's you, JoJo, that had imaginary friends when they were a kid, and they had names. A lot of us have had those, and we don't. And we outgrow them. You know what I mean? Because we get told by people, the people say you're crazy or whatever, and we outgrow them. But the truth is, a lot of us had imaginary friends, oftentimes that come out of the closets of our home. A lot of those ghosts that resident in houses use the Casimir effect in closets and kind of build energy, and they'll come out of closets and hang out in closets. How many times somebody here might have a kid that said that? Oh, my daughter has an imaginary friend, and she lives in the closet.
Yeah.
Or kids afraid of the closet. Or how many of us? let's keep it 100, folks. How many of us cannot sleep with the closet door open? Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have one, so it's all good.
Nobody wants to admit it, but hey, a lot of us,
Yeah, I think if there was one in this room, it'd be permanently shut. Put it that way. No, thank you. Right, got another question for you. And sure. Jo did say she did have an imaginary friend.
Does she have a name, JoJo?
We'll find out in a minute. She's not that quick at typing. She's getting old.
Sometimes when we remember them and remember how they feel, They'll come back around, even though we're older. You know, you can kind of like call them. You know.
Yeah. Well, my partner, before I met her youngest daughter, she had where they used to live. She had an imaginary friend, and as soon as they moved from the house, it stopped. It was never mentioned again.
Some child that lived in that house. Yeah. It's a trip. I mean, it's. I can say this to you honestly, Andy. Now knowing what I know, the work I've done, that the earthbound population is as numerous, or maybe more numerous, than the living. It's terrifying, man. You know.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, because during the session, I'll find out where the earthbound spirit joined with the client, and they'll tell me. How often. Excuse me. How often I've got the hospital. A lot. The incubator room, even worse.
Wow.
And or something like, I had a client. This one was an adult, but they picked up an attack, and there's somebody that knows how to protect themselves. But they went in for a surgery, and they picked up an earthbound in the hospital. And this earthbound told me, amongst telling me how it had to get home, was trying to get home to his physical house, which was 50 years ago. They've been in the hospital for 50 years, joining with people. Yeah. And they kept saying, they said, well, the others weren't strong enough to join with them, but I was. And I just wanted to help them. The surgery didn't go good, but when I found out later, and they kept saying others. So before I get them to cross over, I asked, I said, you say there are others in there trying to join. How many? And she goes, somewhere between 34 and 55, I think it was, or 34 and 50, something like that. Yeah. And that's in one room trying to jump on one person.
Jeez.
I mean, stuff like that. You go, whoa. And this is somebody who knows how to protect themselves, so the others weren't strong enough to penetrate the fields. But when we're doing something like that, we're in surgery, or we've got all these stresses on us. It's like you got the Enterprise here, and you've got 4 Romulan warbirds firing on it, It starts stressing the shields, and it creates these little cracks. And if there's just a little crack, they get in and they go for the heart chakra immediately.
Yeah.
Which is jumping in somebody somebody you love, and they start talking crazy to you. Little stuff like that,
No, appreciate it. Thank you. Right. Next question, and this is from Ralph. Thank you, Ralph. Have you read all of the Carlos? I'm going to struggle now. Surely did it on purpose. Castaneda books.
Carlos Castaneda. Yeah. Yes, I have. Twice. I read everything he had by the time I was in college, actually. Before that. And I've also read a lot of the Chocmules that worked with him. Donna, most all of them, actually. Marilyn Tunishindi, her viewpoint on Castaneda was very interesting. Tasha Abelar, and also Donna Soledad, I think was her name. All 3 of them wrote books, and some of them they all said they trained under Castaneda, but also under Don Juan. And what they said about him is very interesting, and he died some years ago, whatever. So, but fascinating. But yeah, I've read all of his stuff, and I found it very interesting. I've even done a couple of interviews over it. The thing about him, a lot of people argue like, oh, it's just made up stuff. It's just fiction. And my answer is always this. Well, to these people, and it's usually the same answer. Is like, have you tried any of the techniques he gave in those mini books? Well, no. Well, I have. Yeah. I practiced some of them, just tried them. And if it's all fiction, why do some of the techniques, such as the Gate of Power, for example, some of the techniques he gives out actually have manifest 3rd dimensional results quickly? Why is that? It was just fiction.
Yeah.
Food for thought. Again, food for thought,
No, appreciate it. Thank you.
That was a cool question, though. It was a cool question.
Right. Then last question of the night is from UFO Joe again, because written the 2-hour mark. And he'd like to know, any idea on the shadow people? Seems like the right person to ask.
That's a great question. Don't feel sorry, my friend. You're not attacking me or nothing. You're good to go, man. You've been asking some great questions. Concerning that, I have had I had an experience when I was trying to astral project and doing everything, get this astral project like my brother could just seem to do really easy. And what happened was it augmented the way that I was seeing through my pineal gland. And I started seeing different, and I started seeing these shadows, two different types. UFO Joe, two different types. One of them was more spherical, and the others were larger and a little more oval-like. And I watched one of the ovals go attack one of my coworkers. And it's weird because these shadows, I could only see them mostly at first out of my peripheral. Like I said earlier, the peripheral is in black and white, so you can catch them. You know what I mean? But then I started learning how to focus in on them more, and I watched this thing go down and attach to my coworker on her crown chakra, and then down to about the middle of her back, right just around the sex chakra there. Yeah. And then it starts pulsing. It goes from a black to a silver color. And she's bowling. We worked at a bowling alley, and after hours, all the employees could bowl for free. And she's a good bowler. She's a bowler. And I'll tell you, she's down there about to get what you call a turkey, where you get like 5 strikes. She's killing it. But the look on her face, I went to say, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "Well, Barry, it's the stinking thinking's just getting to me." And she's about to get a divorce. So that's what this thing jumped on her and was pumping her negative thoughts and negative emotions and feeding. And that's one there. So that's the type of shadows that I've seen. And then you've got your other shadow people like Heidi Hollis talks about, the Hat Man, and also the cloak man, the hooded man. I have seen the Hat Man stand at the end of my block when I was much younger, probably about 25 or so. And this cat's walking around the end of my block down there. And they wanted me to see him. And I think it's to provoke that feeling of that emotion, and then they start feeding on that. And I've been told, at least Heidi Hollis says, that the Hat Man leads the others, the smaller shadows around and stuff like that, which may be the case, So that's what I think on that, definitely. And real quick before we get going, just hitting on that UFO, Joe, let's throw in with that also the black-eyed children. Okay, I believe the black-eyed children are a warning system, like from a parallel Earth or something like that, that Spirit or something is using. And I based that on this. When I was a kid, there was the Cabbage Patch dolls. They had these things put out that was an answer to them called the Garbage Pail Kids.
Yes,
and what they were supposed to be were survivors of the nuclear war. Remember? And they had it caused a big chaos deal because of that. A lot of problems with that because of that. But when dealing with these black-eyed children, I think they've seen something of a nuclear war timeline, and that they've seen that has turned their eyes black, and basing that also on the few people that have touched them or their kids have gotten too close and touched them, they all get really sick after for a period of time that is described to me an awful lot like sounding like radiation poisoning. Yeah. So this is just food for thought again. So I think maybe that they are a warning system to try to deter us from a timeline of nuclear war, which we're at again. During high solar activity, nuclear war always comes up, and we're dealing with it again right now. So anyway, hope that answers your question, UFO Joe.
No, thank you. He says thank you, Barry. Much appreciated.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and hope it helps. So. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your audience. With the exception of one person, they're really cool. Great questions. Thank you for having me here. And I really enjoyed this interview. It was really cool.
Thank you for coming on.
I love your accent too, and the little things you say. It's different than America. I love that stuff, man.
Appreciate it. So, just before we go, on Friday, I'm interviewing Chris Reinhardt. Do you know Chris?
No, I don't think so.
I know Rob knows him. BMR, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. But it was Alfred Santariga that put me in touch with him, I think.
I've heard that name before.
Definitely. Yeah. So he was on a few weeks ago. But it just all gets so many names and people. I don't know where I know anyone from anymore.
It's all right. You do good interviews, man. I like your interview style and everything. So keep doing what you're doing, Andy. It's important. You know what I mean? It really is. You got a cool, and you like Jessica have a really cool crew, a lot of comments, and just a cool audience. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
But that's really cool. And so what you're doing counts, you know, and it's important. People are looking for answers, and I don't think we have a whole lot of time on this planet to waste.
No, but it's getting the answers, though, isn't it? It's finding them, finding the right ones. I think that's a battle. That is definitely the battle. But no, thank you so much for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone's saying in the chat. So
hey, thanks to all of them. I see somebody say you need me more Brits. I was wanting to go over there, but my friends that I went to college with, they were from London. They said you'll get mugged. I said mugged. They said as soon as you get off the deal, you get mugged. They said little kids. They said little kids will mug you. They mug Americans. It was very, very disheartening, man. Doctor Who didn't tell me that. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. Just joking. But then he did say that you get mugged. They said they especially mug Black Americans. I was like, oh man.
No, you'll be fine. Just don't go to London. You'll be all right. Go anywhere, but you'll be all right.
That means you go to South Croydon, right? You said I would like South Croydon.
Wow, I worked in Croydon a couple of times and I couldn't get out of there quick enough. No offense to anyone who lives there, but it's not my go-to place. Put it that way. We'll leave that. Yeah, we'll move on from that. So quickly, we've got Chris right on Friday, and then next Wednesday, which was quite I've been trying to get this person on for a while, and I was struggling to contact him, but I managed to get through to her via nickname as well. So I've got Laura Eisenhower coming on next Wednesday. So that should be a good one. So like all of them.
Yeah, so, definitely. She's interesting. I met her 2 years ago, actually. She's a nice person.
Yeah. I've not really looked at a lot. I know what she does, but I've not looked into what she does. I was going through her website earlier, and it is very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of websites, is your website up and running?
Yeah, it's been up for a while. It just sucks. It's majoredoring.com. I do most of my work on Patreon and on YouTube. A lot of stuff on YouTube. You can just look me up under Barry Littleton, and on Facebook I post stuff and I try to communicate with people a little bit on there too. So those are probably the ways to get me the best.
So massive thank you again for coming on. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you to the audience, and I appreciate you. Yeah. And please keep in touch, my friend. Definitely.
Oh, definitely. And definitely come back on again some point. And
I'd be honored.
Yeah. No, love it. Right. So on that note, I'm going to go. This is going to get uploaded now as a podcast. So have a great couple of days, everyone. Hopefully you'll be back here on Friday. Where we'll be joined by Chris. He's sent a few photos and videos in. He goes out investigating, so they'll be there for you to view while we're doing the interview. And that's it. So have a great time. Thanks again, Barry. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Well, nearly everyone in the chat. And see you all again soon. Take care and goodbye.